Today's Leading Women episode 593 with the wonderful MELONIE DeRose.
Women all over the world, get ready for inspiring and empowering interviews from women at the top of their field who are kicking butt in their business and who are prepared to share shocking revelations from being in the limelight. You are now listening to Today's Leading Women with Marie Grace Berg.
Podcast your passion. Yes, did you know you can podcast your passion, make a difference, and make money talking about what you love talking about? That's how I get to do what I'm doing, talking to wonderful women every day here at Today's Leading Women. Want to learn how I did it? Go to podcastyourpassion.com. That's www.podcastyourpassion.com. Yes, women of the world, let's get started. I am delighted to introduce you our amazing guest for today, MELONIE DeRose. MELONIE DeRose is the co-founder of Fefit, a premier health and fitness company for women. She is also an adjunct professor at the University of Texas School of Law. In creating Fefit, MELONIE wanted to find a way to help women lessen the guilt that so many of us, themselves included, associate with taking me time. Feeling guilty for not directing every minute somewhere else is actually counterproductive. Before launching Fefit, MELONIE worked as a corporate lawyer at Baker's Butts LLP, and prior to that, she worked as a law clerk to the Honorable Royal Furgeson, a U.S. federal judge. To learn more, visit www.fefit.com. That's FEFIT.com. Again, that's www.fefit.com. Women of the world, Miss MELONIE DeRose. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to be here.
I am delighted to have you on the show, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. So, MELONIE, I really love what you're doing with your business, especially with Fefit and the concept and what you are putting out there. You are a success in your own right. You put in the effort, the sweat equity, the knowledge and experience to build a special business you call your own. As a result of that, our listeners really want to get to know you, and I want to provide that conduit, that bridge between you and our listeners. So here are some cool questions that we can talk about. Feel free to comment anytime about them, but these are just general questions I have in mind. So let's start with your business. There might be people out there who want to start one and have no clue how to go about it. Can you tell us more about your business and the idea behind that niche?
Absolutely. I mean, my business, the creation of my business is actually very personal. I'm a mom of two young girls, and after having my first daughter, I just really didn't feel like there was a fitness option out there for me. I didn't have an hour a day to work out like most new moms don't, and I wasn't comfortable going to the gym, especially right after having a child. And there really just wasn't anything out there for me. I had tried all the options, and I wasn't finding results, or I couldn't relate. So I knew an instructor actually who primarily taught women fitness classes, and we approached her and almost selfishly developed a video because I wanted something for me. And as it turns out, there were so many women in the same place that they just really didn't feel like there was something out there that spoke to them. So we focus grouped, thousands of women, and we figured out kind of the common desires and common, complaints about fitness programs that were out there. And we found that most women, didn't have enough time to work out, wanted a lot of variety, and, just wanted something that addressed their core problem areas, which for us women are often, your abs and your butt and under your arms. And so we set out to create a really amazing fitness program that was developed by women for women, and it just started taking off, and that's how the company got started.
I love what I'm hearing about your business and your story, what an inspiration that one is, and how you birthed it into what it is right now. And that has been a theme here at Today's Leading Women. Really, more often, that idea sprang from our own experience. So, for example, with you wanted fitness program. It really speaks to you, and now you are helping other women as well. So great that you have this niche out there. But what inspires you? What continues to inspire you doing this business?
Yeah, there are so many things. I mean, I'd say that the thing that helps me get out of bed every day and that makes me smile and brings tears to my eyes is when we can help other women. Some people define success in terms of dollars and numbers. And for me, it's when I have a customer that calls me in tears saying, you've changed my life. I couldn't find a fitness program that worked, or I couldn't find a nutrition plan that worked, and your plan is working, and I've lost 20 pounds, or I've developed muscle or lost inches, and it has changed my life. That is why I get up every morning, and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes, nothing is as inspiring and fulfilling than knowing that your customers are happy because of what you're putting out there. You are impacting other people's lives. You're changing them because of what you are putting there. Absolutely. All right, let's talk about how you prepared for success that turned this idea or that turned this inspiration into a reality. Can you share our listeners what are some of your personality traits or your top 3 personal qualities that help you become a successful entrepreneur that our listeners can learn from?
Yes, absolutely. This is always a tough question because it's really success is such a subjective thing. But I think my strongest traits that got me where I am today would, number one, be hardworking, and I could probably answer all 3 questions with that word. I always tell people you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you've got to be the hardest working and the most prepared. And if you've got those things going for you, then you can really set out and accomplish what you want to do. The second thing is attention to detail. I think being a lawyer and having that training has really helped me with this. But I'm very detail oriented, down to grammar, or the not being the right color on an ad, or making sure that the correspondence or the letters that we're sending to customers say exactly what we want to say. Quality is number one to me, quality and customer service. And if you lose focus on the details, I think it will show. The third one is kind of a funny one. A lot of these new startups or big giant companies, we all have our own company values. And one super important value, which actually a federal judge once told me, was mean people suck. And you always want to surround yourself with nice people. And there is enough stress and pressure and time constraints in life that you don't need to be working with people who aren't nice. I don't care what they can do for your company or how much money they can make you. Your mission is going to be much more fulfilling when you are doing it with people who are inherently good people. And I firmly believe that. So those are 3 traits, I think, that have helped me along the way.
All right, so it's being hardworking, attention to details, and surrounding yourself with nice people. Great personal qualities or traits here that Melanie just shared with us. And the good news is that we can all cultivate and adapt this into our lives. All right, let's talk about what happened when you started your journey as entrepreneur. As entrepreneurs, we face daily challenges that define our being. And to get through those challenges takes a very special person. And our audience wants to know that special person in you. So what have been your biggest challenges building your business? And how have you addressed or overcame those barriers to success that a lot of women entrepreneurs face today?
Yes, this is a great question because as an entrepreneur, I mean, you're going to face challenges or things are going to go wrong. I think what's really important is how you react. So the best way for me to describe this is to give some examples of things that actually happened to us early on. So, our first product, we have a DVD and home fitness product, and we had a manufacturer issue on the very first run of our product, completely out of our control, and probably, sort of like my worst nightmare that this would ever happen. And the way we learned about it is I was getting on a plane and I started getting customer emails, one after another saying, I've got this issue. And I mean, my heart stopped. I was just like, this could shut us down. What are we going to do? It's kind of like the worst nightmare situation. So what we decided to do was to, instead of being reactive, was to be proactive. And so there were, I don't know, maybe there were less than 100 customers that this could have affected, but we took any customer that could have potentially been affected by this product and we shipped out new product overnight. And we just said, you know what, you may have an issue, you may not, but in case you do, we don't want you to be inconvenienced. So here's what we're going to do. This is not how I planned starting out my week, but unfortunately this happened and we want to make it right. So that's sort of a long way of saying that it really, you're going to have a problem as an entrepreneur. There's no way to avoid it. But what's important is how you react to it and how you respond. So that would be kind of one of the first challenges that I'm sure a lot of other entrepreneurs can relate to in some form or fashion. Another one is, it takes a really long time to launch a business. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs aren't prepared for the time that it takes. Most of us are starting off with a pretty small team, if there's a team at all. And so it's hard to sustain. So, and you really have to try to find a way to make things work. So, one thing is you've got to accept the fact that you're no longer in control, which is hard for a lot of us type A personality types. Really, the market is in control. And because of that, it's necessary to pivot sometimes. So I'll give kind of another example here. For us, we do in-home videos. It takes a very long time to produce and make these videos, get the right talent, get them all graphically done and ready to roll out. So we spend a lot of time making sure we develop high quality videos. For our first program, it took a very long time. We finally rolled it out, and then we had customers coming back saying, I want more, before we could get another set of videos done. So what we did was we developed another product, which was a protein bar, which is new for us, and we're super excited to launch these bars. But it was a way that we could tell our customers, hey, we hear that you want more. We want to give you another product. We're working on videos, but here's something in the interim. And the protein bars have done exceptionally well. I mean, they've just done awesome. And so we're pivoting a bit and going, okay, well, instead of this being a supplemental product to our videos, this is going to be one of our primary products. So I think, one challenge just might be not really, you've got a plan and you're set down a certain path, and then things change and you've got to figure out a way to pivot to sort of respond to marketplace control. Then one more problem I think that I bet you every entrepreneur can relate to this is just the website. The website, I think they could write books about problems with websites and how difficult it is to find a good web developer. And we've had so many. I mean, if I could change anything in my life, I would wish that I had a very, great tech background and knew how to code. But so we've been through numerous websites, and, we had this beautiful website custom built. It just looked lovely. But then we found out, that it wasn't working as well on mobile devices. Well, it turns out 80% or so of our traffic is from a mobile device. So after spending all this time and money developing this website, we just kind of have to start over and develop a new one that will maybe work better on a mobile device. And so it's very important, I think, when you're looking at web developing, to know exactly what you want, not invest a ton of money in a custom built site would be my advice, unless you have to, just because there's a lot of programs out there like WordPress and others that really so many web developers can tap into, instead of having to find one that has mastered PHP or some other kind of code. But the website is a constant challenge for us. We like to have a lot of control over that, and it's hard without having this coding background. So we're constantly working, trying to find the right storefront, the right way to display our products without having direct control over that.
Yep, I certainly can relate to these challenges that you shared with us. And I'm sure a lot of us do. But the good thing is that when we're sharing these challenges and how we're able to overcome them, we learn from each other. So Melanie just given us a lot of her tips on how she was able to overcome these challenges. So let's learn from them. So when they do happen to us, we now know what to do. All right, let's just switch gears for a little bit and talk about work-life balance. Being a business owner myself, maintaining a work-life balance is so crucial to overall success in life. Now, the challenge with entrepreneurs is how to click on and click off and create a work-life balance, particularly if you have a family juggling many roles. So in your life as an entrepreneur, how do you maintain this work-life balance, and what are some of the ways that you accomplish this in the areas of your health, your family, your relationships, and your business?
Yes, Marie, this is a great question, and it's one I honestly struggle with every day. I think most entrepreneurs have a hard time figuring out how to turn it off, so to speak. The genesis of our company, of Fefit, is sort of premised on this notion of taking me time. I was working as a lawyer, and I was working for a big law firm. I was working countless hours with young kids at home, and I was going crazy thinking I've got to do something else here. I've got to have time to spend with my kids. And I think there is, this notion that being an entrepreneur is fun, and it is. But the time constraints are still there. And so I like to tell people that it's really like the 18 hours a day that I want to choose. So at least I can sort of choose the 18 hours a day that I'm going to work. But I also have the flexibility that if I need to take my child to the doctor, I can. I don't have to ask anybody. But, the first tip I would kind of give people is this notion of taking me time. And this is really counterintuitive, I think, to what a lot of women feel, especially us moms out there who feel like if we give any time to ourselves, we feel so guilty about it that we're not giving it to our kids or our husbands or our jobs or, whatever else, what other pressures we have. So I try to take at least 30 minutes a day and dedicate that time to something that is important for me. So for me personally, and I'm sure this will not surprise you, it's working out. If I don't have the stress relief of that 30-minute workout a day, then it just affects my attitude, affects my productivity. And if you really take that you time, that me time, then, you'll actually be a better spouse. You'll be a better mother, a better professional. And so just figure out what that one thing is for you and make sure you take just a little bit of time each day to reset. I mean, it's very important. The second thing, this is a really personal thing for me, but I actually think it could help a lot of women out there. But, with two kids that are really young, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, cooking and meal prep and lunches are very stressful during the week, especially since, I'm trying to work all of the time as well. So I spend about 2 to 3 hours on Sundays prepping food for the entire week. And this sounds a little bit counterintuitive to work-life balance, but what I find is that if I do that and I prep all the way down to getting individual lunches prepared for myself in the correct size Tupperware containers, I prepare my kids' lunches, I prepare snacks. If I spend 2 to 3 hours, which sounds like a long time, on Sunday, my week is so much less stressful because I literally just open the fridge, pull out dinner, heat it up, and it's good to go. And that typically I can prepare at least until Thursday of each week, and then Friday is kind of a free day. But that makes my week much easier in the evenings, and I have more time with my kids in the evening. And then the last thing I'll talk about, which is something else that's going to sound very counterintuitive, is that I have to get a certain amount of hours of sleep each night. And for me, that's like 6 or 7 hours. Everybody's different. My husband can function off, 3 or 4 hours, and some of my friends need 8 to 10. And so I would, I think what's important is figure out what that number is and make sure you get that amount of sleep as a minimum each night. And I know that so many of us, it's sort of our go-to to just cut the sleep. But actually, it affects productivity, it affects mood and attitude, it affects your desire and willingness to work out and eat healthy. So it's just this circle of, making sure you sleep, trying to eat right, trying to be healthy. But if you take sleep out of there, it really affects everything. So that would be another sort of tip that I try to mandate for myself. I'm not always great at it, but I try to mandate that I get a certain number of hours of sleep a night just to make sure my day goes well.
Brilliant tips there that you've just shared with us in terms of this work-life balance that I know we all struggle with. I myself are challenged with on a daily basis. But I love those tips that you shared with us. You really hit on some really important areas that we can do to be able to have this work-life balance, and having that me time really big on that. And I've also have a ritual for myself too. That is the first thing that I'm gonna do every day. First thing is for myself, and I know it was hard in the beginning because when I'm doing my morning rituals, that includes my workout, eating healthy breakfast, doing my meditation and journaling. It was hard because then my mind was like, I need a lot of other things that I have to do besides this. But now, as soon I feel the benefit, and I know this is hard for a lot of us, but really important to carve that time for yourself. Okay, if first thing in the morning is hard for you, then find a time during the day to really unplug and then and have the one for yourself. Prep food, I am big on this as well. Really preparing your food and meals in advance, really helpful. I mean, similar to what I do in business, I batch my activities. Same thing with food preparation and meals as well. I batch when I do my cooking, and I'm not really good at cooking, but when I cook, I have to cook a lot so that I can just put them in individual containers and put them in the freezer, just like what Melanie just shared. This really helps you with the time so that we don't have to think of and be stressed about thinking of what to cook on a daily basis. Getting that sleep. I know that we are actually have an epidemic of insomnia, or I used to say walking zombies out there because of lack of sleep. So it's really important to get that sleep and not cut that one out. And I am really protective of my sleep because I can't function. I'm so irritable. I'm not my best self if I didn't get enough sleep. So it's really important to have that sleep. And I know sometimes we can't get that 7-8 hours of sleep, but it's not really good for your productivity and for your focus if you are going into this long stretch of lack of sleep. So great tips here that Melanie just shared with us. Let's take action on them today. All right, I know you've given us a lot of tips already, but I'd love for us to talk about one of the highlights of our show, and that's your advice for other entrepreneurs and those aspiring to be, especially to those who want to follow your footsteps. You obviously got some lessons learned under your belt of experience, so take it back to the past. Say you're going to start all over again as an entrepreneur and you are in a class with other entrepreneurs who are hungry and thirsty for success or even for making that first buck. What types of special suggestions or advice and lessons that you learned would you give your fellow entrepreneurs, knowing where you came from and where you headed at? And if you can boil them down to your top 3 tips or advice, what would those 3 be?
Sure. The hardest thing I think about becoming an entrepreneur is making that jump or taking that leap and launching something, whatever it looks like to you. You can. So my piece of advice is just do it. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I can always go back to practicing law, and I know it's hard to accept that. And whatever you're doing in life, I really do firmly believe you can always find that spot again or something different. Women always ask me, how did you leave such a stable, great career at a great law firm with a really good salary? And there's no magic answer to that. I mean, I'm very risk adverse. I mean, I'm a lawyer. That's what I was sort of groomed to be. So becoming an entrepreneur was incredibly difficult. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately for my business, I of course look at everything in the eyes of risk, which is a hard balance when you're an entrepreneur. But you know what? If this business, if it had failed, or if it failed today, which knock on wood, hopefully that will not happen. But if it did, I would not have any regrets because I have learned more in launching a business than I have ever learned in my entire professional career, than my 3 years at law school, 4 years in college. I mean, it is a learning experience that is unparalleled in life. And I think that no matter what I do after this, and hopefully there's not an after this for a long time, but if I decide to move to something else at some point, I will be better at it. No questions asked. So life is short, and just take the jump. And I promise you, your nature will make you figure out a way to make it work. And if it doesn't work, and you got to go back to doing something else or change jobs or whatever for a short amount of time to get the financial resources that you need or build a team, whatever it is doable. So give it a shot. Let's see, a second piece of advice would be, it's important, I think, to sit down and figure out what your core values are. So I think this needs to be done very early on. So I'm a very hands-on person. And I think what sort of we've decided at Fefit is that, everyone's going to carry boxes and everyone needs to hustle because here we're all starting over and we're all starting fresh. So, even though it doesn't matter that a couple of years ago I was working on $100 million deals, I'm now getting up at 3:30 in the morning to go to a fitness event. And my friends are looking at me saying, can't you pay somebody to do that? But no, it's really, as the owner of the company, I really want to be the one to be on the ground floor and to do the research and to talk to the customers. Just saying you're CEO doesn't mean you're paying someone else to do other things. I really firmly believe that you've got to get in on the ground. You've got to be the one who's shipping out your products or providing the services or talking to customers. That's just hugely important to sort of be on that ground floor. And then the other one, and this kind of goes to core values again, but you got to figure out what's important to you and how you want to run your company. So for me, one of the biggest things at Fefit is customer service, and we treat every customer the way I would hope to be treated if I were going into a store and buying something or buying a service. Probably we go even above and beyond well, I know we do actually, what would ever be expected. But in turn, what we found is we have very loyal customers that have allowed us to continue this business. So when I go back to sort of the details matter, I mean, when I personally call our customers all the time, and I'm on the chat function, and I'm the one who will go, we kind of hand wrap our first, set of DVDs, we hand wrapped all of them that went out to our customers. They look like Christmas presents. I was the one sitting in my dining room wrapping those. And, my parents and everyone else sort of laughing at me going, can you get some help with this? And I'm like, you know what? No, I'm in it. And to me, what's important is the customer experience. And I want to have a personal touch on that. And so I've been deeply involved with kind of the growth of our company at the very bottom level. Because for me, the experience that the customer is going to have is king. So when you're trying to figure out, is entrepreneurship for me, should I make that jump? You really got to think about the things that are important to you. And if you're viewing it as I'm going to pay someone else to do all of the important things that matter, I think it might take a second look on whether or not this is the right way to go. Because sometimes, and I firmly believe the success of your company is defined by your role and your values. So definitely take a look at those, figure out what's important to you and then integrate that into every aspect of your business.
Golden nuggets in those tips that you just shared with us. So let me just summarize them again for our listeners. The first one is to take the leap and get started. Just do it. I mean, I know that we are preaching in a choir here, but it's really important, especially for our listeners out there who are just starting out. Take that leap and get started. You never know until you take action. The second one is to be hands-on with your business or be involved with your business. Know the ins and outs of your business. This is really important. No one's going to care about your business than you do. So be really involved with your business. And the third one, which is also talks about your core values, like what Melanie shared with us, is to find out what's important to you and your customers, going above and beyond for your experience. And I like the analogy that Melanie shared with us of stepping into your customer's shoes, so that you know how it feels like, what kind of experience they experience with what you do. Do you like what they are experiencing? Because we will never be able to appreciate or know that one until we put ourselves into their shoes. So it's really important to go beyond our customers and find out what really creates that great experience for them, so they can become loyal followers of our business. Great tips here that Melanie just shared with us. Let's take action on them today. Last but not least, Melanie, share with us the one woman out there you admire the most and why.
Yes. So I was struggling with this, with the idea of this, because I'm often asked this question, and the go-to is sort of to come up with a public figure that everybody knows and respects. But for me, this is a much more personal question, because I think the woman that I have in mind has really defined how I am as a professional, as a mother, as a woman. And so when I worked with the law firm, one of the main reasons I came to this particular law firm was there was a female partner there. There's actually two women. They were well, actually one of them has left, but they were both partners. And so they're not public figures, so to speak, but they entered a predominantly male, driven career path, because for a long time in Texas, which is where I'm from, women just weren't viewed as lawyers. They were kind of secretaries and paralegals. And so at the time when they started in their profession, it was a very uphill battle. And talk about breaking, glass ceilings. Well, these women that I worked with have really paved the way for women like me, and they were able to, define their role in and amongst a male-driven industry, and to do it really well. And now, these particular women are sort of leaders in their respective practices of law and very well respected. And one thing that I've sort of noticed is unfortunately, and I never thought, maybe it's just my generation, that I would see a lot of sexism, but I have seen it. I've never kind of described it as being victim of it, but it has happened to me. And, I just brush it off because I know that women as a whole are so successful. And these particular women that I had admired and had mentored me had done incredible things as attorneys and had, been really well respected. And so they were able to, create and define themselves as leading lawyers without having to be, very assertive and catty or some of those things that unfortunately society often describes successful women as, which I don't think are necessary. And the way that they did it, honestly, is they were the most prepared and they were the hardest working. And I go back to those tips that I think that have been or traits rather, that have been what have allowed me to get where I am. And I think those traits have come in large part from the mentoring from these women that I worked with at a law firm who really taught me, what's important is to show up and to work hard and to be prepared. And then, of course, to be kind. And I think if you've got those things going for you, you can do anything.
Yes, so the two women out there that inspired you, we salute them for not just being an inspiration to you, but to all of us here at today's Leading Women. Lastly, Melanie, share our listeners what's one big benefit that they can get with your product or your service, where they can get it, and what's the best way that our listeners can connect with you, and then we'll end from there.
Absolutely. So our website, again, is www.fefit.com. That's Fefit. That's the best place to find us. You can chat with me. I'll often be the one chatting there. We've got our phone number and email on the website. But really, what I want to highlight is we have defined ourselves as not only a premier health and fitness company, but as a trusted resource for health and fitness for women. So if you're looking for, a doable and effective workout program that you can relate to, or a nutrition plan that is customized based on your health and fitness goals, or a snack that actually tastes good and is healthy for you, then you should seek us out. And I think that's what we can provide. We really take in mind women's wants and busy schedules and quality. And I think I'm slightly biased, but I could probably say that I think that we've created the best fitness option out there for women that was created by women for women. So I think if you're looking for a program that speaks to you, then just check us out.
All right, so that's www.fefit.com. It's Fefit.com. I highly encourage you, our listeners, to go there now, www.fefit.com. I know this is an area that I'm sure a lot of us are passionate about. I mean, our health is one of the greatest investment that we can give ourselves. So I'm passionate about this. I'm sure a lot of you are. So if you want to take advantage of nutritional plans, workout plans that really speaks to you, because it's for women by women, women that speaks to you, women that knows your struggles, that knows what you're going through, the challenges you have especially in terms of fitting in a workout schedule and nutrition like those. Finally, we have this technology, we have this program, we have this company that Melanie has that really helps you. So I really encourage you to go there now, at least be on their newsletter so you can be updated on what they're putting out there, connect with them through their social media, and also chat with Melanie on their website. They have this cool resource called OLARC that enables her to be able to chat with you and find out your challenges, your frustrations, your fears, and how she can help you with her program Fefit. So that link again is www.fefit.com. Melanie, thank you so much for being so generous in sharing your time, your inspiring story, your expertise, for being a role model to many, and for bringing such a positive energy with our listeners today. Women of the world, including me, appreciate you and wish you more success in business and in your life.
Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
Thinking of starting a podcast? Seriously consider starting a podcast of your own, remembering that it will allow you to grow in ways you never imagined. It will grow your email list, your audience, your influence, and your bank account. Go to podcastprofitsystem.com to get started. That's www.podcastprofitsystem.com. profitsystem.com.
Feeling inspired and empowered to make it happen? Then take the next step and go get your free guide to the top 10 resources that today's leading women use to stay at the top of their game, plus Marie's favorite today. Visit todaysleadingwomen.com/guide for your free download, and we'll see you on the next episode of Today's Leading Women with Marie Grace Berg.